migrant workers have always been a part of the Singapore story.
Yeah. Your Singapore is not my Singapore.
Many Singaporeans think that they are one or two notch above other people.
Hi, welcome to SG Now. I'm Sharda Harrison. So good to be back in the studio with none other than da-da-da-da-da-da. Hey, Bruce.
What's up?
Wow, what's up?
Yeah,
wow,
what's up?
What's
What's
up?
up? Yeah,
What's
what's
up? Well,
up?
I heard you've been eating a lot of the spiky fruit,
Yes.
the king of all fruits.
Of course I had, because durian season was going to end pretty soon.
It ends today, right?
I think so.
Maybe.
Last week I went to a few places, couldn't find them at all. So before I have to fast for like a few months, I made sure I gorged myself. And then once the durian ended, you know what I went into next?
What?
Jump it up. Yes.
Well, it's always an adventure with Bruce. I love having him in the studio. Along with Bruce in the studio, we have two guests. We have Vincent. Really lovely to meet you, Vincent. Now, Vincent is the general manager of A Good Space, a non-profit cooperative, which, if I'm not wrong, it brings changemakers together, right?
Kind of like a community of different change makers. So we come together in different events, we work on different projects together.
Fantastic. I love that. I love that. You should get Bruce in there. He can bring his durians. We also have Miss Chua Ning Pei, and I can address you as Ning.
Sure, Ning.
Great. Now, you are the founder of I Am Invisible, which is an initiative which brings untold stories of people into the light, right?
That's right.
I love I Am Invisible because it's literally I am capital in small font, visible capital letters again.
Yeah.
So that's like a double play on the visibility of the people on the ground.
You're totally spot on. So that, as the name suggests, is to bring the invisible into visible. To bring those people trailing the shadow to light.
You also have an upcoming multimedia showcase called Do You See Me? Oh, well, we're going to learn a little bit more about that later, so I'm not going to give it away yet.
Yep.
But more importantly, we've all come here today to talk about migrant workers and their hidden talents and really bringing about this meaningful relationship that can develop and has been developing between Singaporeans and these amazing people who build up our cities and do a lot more than that, take care of our children, really, we want to talk a little bit about that today. But before we do that, we're going to have a look at the trailer, Do You See Me? So enjoy that.
I came here because I want to get my dreams, like I want to help them.
Today is Mother's Day. I wrote a message when my mother was alive.
I don't see myself only as a helper. I see myself as a human.
One very lasting comment that one of the brothers made to me once was that saying that my Singapore isn't your Singapore, and I think that impacted me very deeply because I realized of the inequalities even though we're living on the same island.
We want from our heart from this to bonding the local communities, to share with our feelings, share with what I expect. We want to make bonding come closer with each other.
We just want to say them, just treat us like others. No need to treat us like we are migrants.
How could you stand still like that kind of hardship that you never tell, you didn't tell to anyone? Like
Singapore coming a very hard job, very sun-powered hard. I cannot done first time. Full body pain, the leg pain, back pain, the muscle of the pain.
I was a kindergarten teacher, but the salary, the pay is not enough for my family, especially for my kids in Japan.
Actually, Singapore is a land of migrants. I mean, all of us were technically migrants in some way, right? But how quick we forget.
I always say thanks to Singapore because they all took care of us very well, like a Singaporean.
They treat me like a family.
This time also I happy, and now also I remember them.
I've been so proud of them. They are showing the kind of relationship that we have.
This is like our second home, and everyone, including the Singaporean, are part of our extended family.
We can bring back a bit of the kampong spirit that we had in the past 如果有一天我回国了，大家互相留一个地址号，到时候过来你可以找我打电话，我会接待你，是吧？
Do you see me?
So, here's some statistics, right? As of 2021, Singapore's foreign workforce is 1.2 million people out of how many people are there in Singapore now? Seems like it's endlessly rising up, but we have a population of 5.5 million people. That's a huge statistic, isn't it? So we have so many foreign workers in our community. So I really do think, I mean, I've worked with migrant workers on a very artistic basis. So we've done a documentary work on one of them. We followed them, a construction worker, poet all around Little India. And sometimes I work with Burns Migrant Theatre to bring art to people who work as domestic workers on construction. But I still do feel that we have a very one-dimensional view on migrant workers. Like, to us, it's like, migrant worker. Right, Bruce, what do you think?
Migrant workers are also human beings.
Yeah.
Like what you said earlier on, they have been around for the longest time. They've helped build up our nations. They've helped taking care of our children, clean up our homes. But how visible are they actually? Right. I see a lot of them getting treated like second or even third class citizens. And that really hurts me a lot. I take the public transport. I've witnessed with my own eyes when the elderly come into the train. The migrant workers are actually the first people to stand up and offer the seats to the elderly, and not Singaporeans. To me, the question is, why?
Yeah.
And they're not even sitting at a corner seat, they're like in the middle. And those corner seats aren't occupied by, the handicapped or elderly, able-bodied Singaporeans. Why aren't they standing up?
Yeah.
Why are these people standing up? I mean, there was once, I'm not here to toot my horn.
Okay.
Once someone stood up, a foreign worker, I actually stopped him, asked him to sit down. I stood up and offered my seat instead.
Oh, that's really good.
Because I felt, why should he?
Yeah.
He had a hard day's work. He's tired. I think he needs the seat more than I do.
Yeah, and it's great that you brought that up, this idea of visibility. And going back to the trailer we just watched, Do You See Me? Right. Ning, tell us about that. What is this whole project about, Do You See Me?
It is essentially to really bring empathy, to build empathy among the community, to really, increase the positive sentiments that the local has towards the migrant community. As what Bruce has mentioned, there is a report, by the listening lab that Singapore has a very negative sentiments towards the migrant community, and we want to change that.
But why do you think we have negative sentiments to the migrant community?
I feel like there are many reasons. I guess my own personal view on this is distance. So it is very difficult to kind of hate someone if you see them very up close and you kind of have interactions with them. The dormitories that the workers live in are very far away. The recreation centers that they go to are very far away. And typically most Singaporeans do not go hang out at Little India on a kind of daily basis or on the weekends. But the interesting thing is also the migrant workers are actually in our communities. So if you live in a HDB estate or wherever you live, right, there's always migrant workers doing work outside in the very hot sun. Sometimes we drive past, we walk past. So I feel like if we stopped to just listen to their stories and we close the distance, maybe that will kind of help with the stigma that Ning talked about.
Actually, you're right. They are all around us and we walk past them without even seeing them or noticing them or even wanting to share a smile. These are very interesting terms that you think, I love it. Do you see me? Living, listening labs. Like, what is that project about?
So basically during the pandemic, we saw there's a lot of Singaporeans who want to do good for the workers, especially when they were stuck in their dormitories. So there really was an outpouring of different initiatives. So I have to say, actually, many Singaporeans did rise up to the challenge and come to the forefront. And also we know like all these different government agencies, they were working, especially the MOM folks were working around the clock just to support the brothers. We saw, I think, amidst all this momentum, we were involved in some of these initiatives at A Good Space Cooperative, some of our members and our founding chairperson. And we realized that actually there were some issues that are a bit more systemic. that will still continue to persist after the pandemic. So things like, for example, the emotional experience of living in a dormitory, the barriers of accessing healthcare such as dental care, the social exclusion that Ning talked about earlier. It even goes down to things like food, transport, things like that. So these kind of issues, typically, they cannot be solved by a single organization alone. Just because the government wants to solve it, there's a lot of clout doesn't necessarily mean that, they can also need the buy-in of the employers, the dormitory operators, or even if the NGOs want to solve it, they can't do it alone because these issues are very complex. Different people have different ways of looking at the same issue. They also have different ways of thinking about how to solve that issue. So this whole Listening Living Labs is our experiment. We will see whether it's successful or not, but it's an experiment to kind of bring together multi-sector stakeholders, get them to look at these issues and form working groups that are not just, you can't just be from the employers. It's a work group that comprises people from the employer, the dorm operator, some of the MOM representatives, or even ordinary people from society to look at these issues and hopefully create some longer-term systemic change.
That's fantastic. Really changing things from the ground up. But how did you get these cooperatives to kind of work with you on this, especially the stakeholders? How did you get them all involved?
Yeah, so there was a lot of kind of relationship building. I think we must have had 70 over calls in the 2-month period just to tell people what it was. I think the idea, the challenge there was it was so abstract, right? I mean, if you say organize activities at a recreation center for the migrant workers on a Saturday, everyone understands. But come together, talk about these issues, let's think about what we can do and ideate. I think that was very tough. And our kind of big, hairy, audacious goal is, could we get all these stakeholders to draft a 5-year plan for what they think needs to happen for Singapore to be an even more welcoming place for migrant workers to work and live in? And also not forgetting our domestic workers. During the pandemic, migrant workers, when we see in the news, chances are we only see the migrant workers in the construction, marine and process industry. But I think the statistics of domestic workers, was it 240-something thousand domestic workers in Singapore, which I also feature in the exhibition as well.
You have conducted human libraries before, which I was a participant a few times. So I was thinking, why not have a human library where the books are the foreign talents themselves?
Yeah, that would be
that way
fantastic.
Singaporeans will get a better view of who they are, their lives, their dreams, their aspirations. They are just like each and every one of us.
Yeah.
They have their own dreams and aspirations. They have families thousands of miles away. They have their fears, they have their sorrows, they have their pains too.
And that is exactly what we did in our video stories, is to really showcase their dreams and aspirations, that they are really just like one of us. They came all the way from their hometown, traveling thousands of miles to be away from Singapore. They leave their family to take care of us. And at the end of the day, they're just like any one of us. They're just working, for a better future. For their family. Their hopes and dream is to be an ideal father, responsible mother, a filial child, and a caring, doctor. Why is there, a distance, a social distance between the Singapore and the migrant community when we are so similar? All of us are just, at the end of the day, it's just human beings.
Do you think we take their stories for granted?
If I may share one of the stories, because, for this showcase, right, we have 43 migrant stories and 9 changemakers from 8 countries.
Wow.
And what really struck me, one of the changemakers actually said, what got him going to become a changemaker and continue doing till now today was a comment that one of the brothers made. Your Singapore is not my Singapore. It was like, oh my gosh.
That's so cutting.
Some of the foreign workers, foreign talents, they have been here more than half their lives. Our Singapore is as good as their Singapore, their country. They've lived in our tiny island nation more than they have lived in theirs.
Yeah.
So my question is, why can't we treat them like
brothers?
Brothers.
Yeah.
Just like any one of us. Why do we have to term them as second or even third class citizens? And to hear that coming from someone who has helped our nation.
Exactly.
Wow.
So what are some of the stories that you've heard?
There are so many stories on the ground. 43 of them, they're stories of grit, resilience, passion, dreams. So many of them. If I may share, a few compelling one that really stuck out for me is there was this brother, whose parent passed away in the last 2 years. And that happened that, while we are doing the shooting of the day, happened to be Mother's Day. And it was Mother's Day, and then I asked, like, what do you miss home? He said, I miss my mom. It's like, he managed to see his father at the last time just before the pandemic. He able to get home, like just 2 hours before his father passed on. He able to see him. Then during the pandemic, his mother called him. If you want to see me one last time, you got to come home now.
Oh.
And because pandemic, he couldn't go home, and he was just so devastated. And and the next day, the mother passed away. And it was like, he was very, very emotional. And he said that, if I ever get to see my mom again, I just want to tell her that, I really love her so much. It was, that was the first shooting that I had. It was really very compelling.
I'll maybe share two quick ones, Sharda and Bruce. I first got to meet migrant workers in my 3rd year of university. Back then, we were doing a kind of project to help one social enterprise, SDI Academy, do more English classes for migrant workers.
Yeah.
So I remember interviewing 5 migrant workers to ask them, like, what are their motivations for studying English classes? Why do they come and learn? It was at a coffee shop just opposite Pioneer MRT. And then 5 of them were there at the table, me and my group mates. So I asked them whether they wanted a drink. And then all of them said no. And then I also didn't realize why, but the drink is so cheap, right? It's only like $1.20. Why would you not want the drink? So eventually I bought the drink. And then I realized why. Because the daily wages they were earning, right, were so low. But what they said next really shocked me. They were actually earning not a lot. Like maybe I think that time was 500 or 600. That was already a bit on the high side. Right? And they were investing in themselves. They were studying diploma courses. They wanted to go to university. So that kind of desire to learn was very strong. So that was really memorable for me. And I think in the process of the Listening Living Labs, where we kind of bring migrant workers, NGOs, employers, dorm operators, and the government, our representatives from the government agencies together. One thing that stuck out for me a lot is the brothers do want to have a voice. They do want to have a say, but it is not in a destructive way. It's not in a complaint way. They are very grateful for everything that the Singaporean government has done for them, and they do recognize that MOM has made huge strides during this pandemic with the setting up of the ACE team, the Assurance Care Engagement team. They even have a FACE team, which is the Friends of ACE, where a lot of different migrant brothers serve as peer supporters. But I guess what struck out a lot for me was that sense of earnestness to learn. Because these sessions, we always host it on a Sunday afternoon, because that's the only time that most of them are free. And it is really only their only off day, very precious, but they give us 4 hours of their time. And they just want to come here and kind of contribute to making some changes that will affect their fellow brothers. And I just maybe end by sharing one quote, which one of the brothers shared with me. He said, I know these things are very long term, whether I benefit or not, never mind, but maybe the next generation of my countrymen from Bangladesh coming can benefit, then that's okay.
Due to the affluence that Singapore has been in for so many years, many Singaporeans think that they are 1 or 2 notch above other people. Right?
That's the hard truth right there.
And they forget where they come from. Right? They forget that our nation is also a nation of migrants, of immigrants. I mean, my mother is Chinese, my dad is French, my mom is Chinese. My grandfather was from China. When he arrived in Singapore, he was penniless. Right? He and his brothers. But they built businesses for themselves.
I want to share that, one of the sisters was just really very brave, because throughout the whole filming, right, I in addition to just the portrait shots to really bring them to light, right, we get them to do exercise to affirm themselves. So the word of affirmation that she has for herself is, I am courageous. She shared that she's courageous to go out to face the world and build a future for herself. But at the same time, it also took a lot of courage for her to speak up for herself. Because back then, she says she's been here in Singapore for 7 years. She began her journey here in Singapore not having the best relationship with her employer, but slowly she able to pick up the courage to speak up for herself, to share her opinions, her thoughts with her employer. And therefore, with that opening up and the open communication, right now they have such a good relationship with employer, to the extent where she is a very talented lady. She writes, she performs. She was also invited to perform at Esplanade before.
Wow.
And then what got her so proud was that her employer actually went to Esplanade to watch her performance. it is so important to her. It shows that her employer actually value her
Yes.
beyond the role of a helper.
And is there a possibility that we can create meaningful relationships with our migrant workers? And I'm talking about like the whole breadth and width of the 5.5 million of us.
I know some of them, or the way they eat, the way they sit, the way they speak, we Singaporeans don't quite like it. We find that it's shenanigans. It goes against our grid or whatever. But if we have an open mind, like what Ning said, very interestingly, she said that lady actually performed at the Esplanade. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. So migrant workers, just like us, are very talented people.
Exactly.
There are very talented people in our midst.
I feel so exhibitions or showcase like the one that Ning is doing helps. I often think about the kind of unconverted people, because I guess we are all in this space, right? Both of you care about social issues. Ning cares about migrant workers and mental health.
Yeah.
So these are not the people to convince, because if I ask you to come for the exhibition, you will definitely come. But it is the other people who are online, making comments that are a bit different, right? That I think these are the ones that we really need to find a way to reach them and listen to them. I've been thinking about this a lot, and I don't really have a good answer. But I think showcases like Ning is a place to start.
For me, I'm very passionate about storytelling. I feel that it's really very powerful, using personal storytelling to relate, to build resonance.
Yeah.
That we are so similar, and why that is there a divide? Like you are 2 notch below, as what Bruce mentioned. It's like this true storytelling. I want to showcase that we are all very similar. We are very same. Like why is there a differences? Like you are 2 notch above than us. We are all working so hard. Building for the future. If we were just to go overseas, we want to have that kind of treatment that we would love to have as well. And why are they treated different?
If we went overseas to work, we want that same respect.
Exactly.
Right?
And what they really want is a sense of belonging and acceptance in a country, in a home away from home that they want to call home.
Yeah. So I was going to ask then, before we wrap up, what's the ideal that we're aiming towards? Is it for all of us to sit down and have kopi o together, or? But I think you nailed it. You mentioned it. They just want to feel. Our brothers and sisters, my terminology, want to feel like they belong.
Yes.
In a place where they have given their blood, sweat, and tears, taken care of our children, built our buildings, and they should belong because they've done so much for us, right?
Do join us. There'll be a very diverse dialogue exchange between migrant storytellers as well as changemakers. So it's happening on the 7th of August, 2 o'clock launch at Chisi Humanistic Youth Center at Yishun.
Okay, it's not only one day, is it?
The launch will be on the 7th of August, and the whole exhibition showcase will run till 31st of August.
Fantastic.
Admission is free?
Of course.
Always free for Bruce.
Yes.
I'm going to go.
Yeah. I'm
looking forward to have you.
You all better come, ah.
No, come a free one.
You all talk about migrant workers, you better come, ah. So Bruce, what are your final thoughts?
Brothers and sisters, they are still flesh and blood like us. They are no different from us. All right. Let us treat them the same.
Yeah.
Have a heart.
Yeah.
Don't treat them any differently.
I don't get to talk to many people that have these human library of stories, right? And it always shifts my heart. Like I always feel happy to talk about this because I don't get to talk and share with, in a way, like-minded people that really care. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you for having us.
Spending your time with us today. So for me today, I love this whole concept of living listening labs. I get it right. Living listening labs. Do you see me? I see you in me? I am invisible. And these are all just, flashing out there, trying to tell us that there are all these untold stories of these people that have built our country, taken care of our children, and why can't we see them the way they see us? And ultimately, they just want to belong, like we all want to belong to our country. I think it's just so important that we do sit down together as we are now and start these conversations. And I hope the next time one of us sees a migrant worker on the road, you know, toiling away in the sun, I've always been told that sharing a smile is the greatest gift of charity ever. And you don't know how important that one smile can be, and it goes a long, long way. So share those nice pearly white teeth of yours and share a smile. Now, if you've enjoyed today's conversation, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell for notifications. And if you want to contribute to the conversation, I feel really pleased. I read, you know, all the comments that goes into our post. So please don't be afraid to leave a comment. All right. We will see you next time on the show. Looking forward to that. See you. Take care. Bye bye.